all the way out here. Could we just hear it again for Brother Rowland? Just welcome home, big brother. Welcome home. Talking about survivors, 29 years. I am black and I am beautiful. I wonder what you think. I hear music, I see angels. I want love because I give love. I am black and I am beautiful. I pretend not because I'm blessed. I touch people's lives, but I sometimes worry that you won't understand. I cry for my people. I've died for my people. I am black and I am beautiful. I understand what you mean because we can relate as human beings. I dream for our future. I work my hardest. I hope that's enough. I'm black and I'm beautiful. We are black and we are beautiful. We wonder what you think. Actually, we don't. We create music, we host angels, we seek love because we are love. We are black and we are beautiful. We don't pretend to be others. We are blessed and highly favored on our own. We touch lives in a way that you can't understand. We cry for our people. We are black, we are beautiful. We understand what you mean because we can relate as human beings. We labor for our future in honor of our ancestors. That should be enough. We are black and we are beautiful. Snap it up for that one? Get started. That was a poem I wrote. Half of it I wrote on my way over here because I like freestyling. My lady was like, why you writing? You don't like what you wrote? I said, yeah, but I like to be creative, so I wanted to add some more. As Devon noted to a little bit, I'm a multimedia artist, particularly a visual artist. I like to use my hands. I like to paint, draw. I like to do graphic design. I also like to do film and media. But with that, I created a program called the Confined Arts. This program highlights the talents of currently and formerly incarcerated artists. These next two pieces I'm going to read are from some gentlemen who are not able to be here today. They call me SK961. However, when I was born on March 24th, 1981, I was given the name Justin Anderson. I bet as my mother lay there cramped in that hospital room holding her bundle of joy, she never imagined that 20 years later he'd be called a number. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The process of dehumanization is slow, like the wheels of justice. As an adolescent, I wore labels such as bad and troublemaker. Sometimes I felt ashamed. The other times I felt proud because it gave me respect I definitely wanted from my peers. By 18, my elders began using phrases like dead and jail when discussing me, as if they knew where I was going before I did. Some of them looked upon me with pity while others kept their distance, as if I was contagious, as if what I had would jump onto them. I will never forget the day that my best friend told me he wasn't allowed to hang out with me anymore. It seems as though everyone else knew where I was going except for me. Everyone but me. The language that was used to describe me made me feel like a prisoner, even back then, although I didn't fully understand it. I felt restricted, boxed in, and counted out. The fact that I feel the same way as a prisoner today as I did when I was free as a child is something that I've always thought would be something I would take to my grave. Never to say out loud to you all. But if my story can help change how we use the power of language, then I will bear that shame 1,000 times over. I firmly believe that the key to unlocking change is by recognizing the language we use. Our words, that is, have the power to influence the minds and behaviors of others. If I am correct, then my hope is that you will ignore all of the labels incarcerated men and women have been forced to wear, and by the power invested in these words, let the rehumanization process begin. Let the rehumanization process begin. Let the rehumanization process begin. Let's give it up for Brother Justin Anderson. Yeah. Brother Anderson is in Arkansas right now on death row. And it's a blessing to be able to speak his words to you all and to be able to be a vehicle by which his voice is still heard amongst the masses. Amen? Reflect on the reflector. What does the long-suffering victim among incarcerated family and friends, the social justice warrior trying to effect change surrounded by blind sleepwalkers, and the soul spiritually evolving through the lessons and change of life all have in common? They are all basing their experiences on the exact same set of facts. We love to believe by our observing just facts, it could prove our perspective is right. But the manner by which we're interpreting them, the more accurate source of our sight. The same situation, two different eyes, will be varied in their drawn conclusion. But feeling your eye is the ultimate truth. It is the height of an ego's illusion. A fact is a fact, and in that we agree, i.e., Africans is where you can find the best everything on earth. But using your vision to narrate the story is still just your filtered opinions. You may say Africa is this, but I say it is something different. Through living your daily, receiving the chance to confirm all biases held, but don't get in backwards with neutral perceiving, you're adding the meaning yourself. For merely because you are able to label events doesn't flatten their depth, but often you'll see that the irony is the most certain are flattest of all. Our life isn't flat, it's a beautiful sphere, where dimensions can merge and divide. So as you continue reflecting and judging, include the reflector inside. The summary to an enlightened awareness of maximum growth and compassion is open yourself to life's multiple meanings and know they are self-interpretation. Let's hear it for Brother John Barton. Brother Barton is in Texas right now serving life without parole for DUI about 12 years ago. And again, it's a blessing to be able to bring the voices from out there, or in there rather, on out here. I would ask though, in support, at the very least, if you're on Instagram, if you're on Twitter, please follow The Confined Arts. You could do that now, that'd be wonderful. It's easy to find, The Confined Arts, and can you just like us on Facebook? That's it. Thank you.
That was dope. I'm inspired. So, wow, give it up one more time for Pastor Art. That was deep. I appreciate that, brother. We're gonna keep it moving. And then we're gonna bring up Mr. Davis to the stage so that he can bless us with his poetry as well.
Good afternoon, everybody. If you could, you were giving out copies of handouts. Could you just pick them up and absorb them with me for a moment? The first piece that you see right there, that represents all the pain, the struggle, the anger, the frustration, the disappointment, the rage that I was feeling as a teenager before I went to prison. And it was that same image, those same feelings and emotions that I carried into prison, right? So that's why that image is so hardcore like that. You see the shackles, because I'm still in that process of trying to find myself, my identity, who I am, right? And this poem that I'm about to read to you right now is my emotions from my very first parole board. Hit with 24 months. Kept moving along as if nothing happened. Can't stop, won't stop. Just another day. Days blended. No time to process what happened. Shock, stunned, disbelief. Took it on the chin. I was dazed and perplexed. Never internalized how traumatic an effect hold for 24 months. Dreams, goals, life. Torn, divided between two worlds. Misplaced, floating between confusion, anger, and pain. Vulnerable. Lost, searching for something to keep grounded. School, work, family. None of them can ease the pain within. Nothing seems to fill the void. 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5 months. Reality slowly sets in. What do I do now? Looking deep within, resolve. I wrote this poem after my first parole board. I was given 24 months of denial. So much emotions was going through me, and I had to get it out. I had to express what I was going through, but I had to express what I was going through in a positive and a constructive manner. So that's why I wrote this poem. That gave me an outlet, that gave me strength, that gave me motivation to keep my head up, to keep moving. Right? If you now flip to the second page of those illustrations, you'll see an individual in deep thought, very, very ponderous. This is that phase and stage in my life where I ask myself these questions. Am I going to be a product of my environment and spend the rest of my life incarcerated? Or am I going to figure out who I am, what I want to do with the rest of my life? And in that contemplative state, I realized some things, that I wasn't just an ID number, and I wasn't the crime that I committed. So in the process of doing so, I wrote this poem, and it's called The Journey of a Stationary Man. Physically restricted in this isolated place, my mind's eye takes me on a journey through time and space. I have witnessed the beginning and endings of great empires and nations. The Egyptians, the Romans, the Ottoman Empire. I've explored them all in this isolated place. I have observed the exploration of the deepest depths of Atlantis in search for Moby Dick. I have seen my fellow man reach the highest of heights and taken that one great step for us all. I have made mental observations of 7 great wonders, and yet I'm still in pursuit of an 8th in this isolated place. I have witnessed a black man become president of the United States of America through race and hate. I have seen racial violence and hate dissipate, only to be reborn in the form of cops shooting unarmed black men. In my mind's eye, I envisioned Hillary Clinton becoming our first female president. What a sight that would be. Seeing it all while bound in a stationary place. My journeys takes me to a more infinite place. Though I'm a stationary man, the chains of ignorance can never confine me in this isolated place. So that was definitely a time for contemplation and growth in my life. And throughout it all, I kept growing and growing and growing and kept moving forward. Kept trying to be a part of the community that I was taken away from, that I didn't really understand. So if you flip to the last page, you'll see a metamorphosis. You'll see a man that's standing upright with his head held high because he has an idea of who he is and what he wants to do with the rest of his life. But even still, there were still pitfalls and obstacles that I had to overcome, mainly the parole board. So this piece here, I went to like maybe 6 parole boards at this time, and so many things were just building up. So I had to express myself, and this is how I express myself. And the name of this poem is called Resiliency. I am the embodiment of resiliency. What do I look like to you? Do I look like someone who has overcome tremendous adversities? Someone who has resolved to overcome overwhelming challenges? someone who has endured and bounced back every time stronger and wiser. I am all of that and more because I am the embodiment of resiliency. Do I look like someone who can look at life and smile? Someone who understands that every experience has a lesson to teach. Someone who looks at life for what it is. Someone who can accept the hard facts of reality and still move forward. Yes, I'm all of that and more because I am the embodiment of resiliency. I am someone who understands that struggle brings growth. I am someone who understands that understanding brings knowledge. I am someone who uses knowledge to gain understanding. I am someone who takes understanding and turns it into wisdom. Yes, I am all of that and more because I am the embodiment of resiliency. And so are you. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Rowland. I'm inspired. I'm about to go up there and spit something. I'm not even a poet, but y'all definitely have motivated me. So I guess I'll start with you, Pastor Scott, because I want to give Mr. Davis an opportunity to gather himself. But I was really inspired by the first poem because we are black and, you know, black solidarity and all of that stuff. But I would love if you could speak to the people about your creative process. Like you just said that you wrote some of that on your way here. And maybe folks in the crowd may aspire to do the same. So maybe you can give them some of that.
I think, let me stop saying that. I was rebuked for using that word. It's important that we are not afraid to be honest and say what's on our heart. So there was no pressure because I said, I'm just gonna say what's flowing here on my heart because that's what's right for right now. You know, it's important that we don't doubt ourselves and question, you know, what comes from our heart, you know, because a lot of times it's the truth or there's something there, and sometimes we'll suppress that because it may not be a popular narrative. It may not be something we think everyone wants to hear or that people will accept, but sometimes you got to be that one person who's going to break the glass and just kick the door down and you break the seal off of that. So part of that creative process is just doing it. I had one professor who in my painting class, she used to always say, put it. And she used to say that because we would be so hesitant. She'd give us all these instructions and then be like, all right, go do it. And we sitting there like, all right, how do I start this? And she like, just put it. Just put the paint on. And once you put it on, you go from there. And it's just like, once you just put that pen to paper, whatever your creativity is, once you get it going and you take that first step, nature, God, however you want to articulate it, is going to do what it does. It's going to do what it does. And we are creative. We were created by a creator, so we are creative. So we can create the same if we tap into that. But it takes us being bold and not doubting ourselves, you know?
No doubt. Appreciate that. So, Mr. Davis, excuse me, his band name is Ro. So is you okay with that? So this is Ro, because y'all going to hear from him sooner rather than later in other spaces and places, so y'all know his nickname now. So, Ro, I actually am familiar with your work. The poem Resiliency actually speaks to me. I read it to crowds myself, just like Isaac did while you were still inside. So for me, like for you to have that creativity while inside, going through all that stuff, must have been a lot. And maybe you could speak to the people about like what actually gave you the motivation, the strength to actually focus in the midst of all that, to actually put that on paper.
Oh, wow, that's a great question. But to be truthfully honest, Devon, everything I write, my art, my poems, my passion, is all based off of my passion, right? Because when you're in those heated moments, right, that energy that's running through your body can actually go either way. So being that I was already in a hostile and you know, how should I say, degrading environment, I chose to take that energy to put it to something constructive, right? Because I don't know if any of you guys are familiar with could I just say, with the prison system or the prison industrial complex in our country today, right? But it's a savage environment, but it's a savage environment that was created by the individuals who created the environment. Because they try to say that the individuals that are inside prisons are the savages. No, we're individuals who made mistakes or bad choices or decisions in our lives, right, based off of the times and environments that we were in. But that doesn't make us bad people. It just made that we made bad choices. So I didn't want to continue making bad choices. And I knew that at some point in time, I would be released. And what type of person would I be when I come out? So I didn't want to bring all of that passion that accumulated over time, you know, dealing with this process called the parole board, right? So I used that energy to transform it into something positive, something constructive that could actually help someone else in those time of darkness. And that time of darkness doesn't necessarily have to be inside a prison wall or 8x6 cell, you know, because we all experience things in life, but we all experience them at different moments in time. So if I can put something on word or paper that may touch somebody 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the line, then I'm going to use that passion for that.
No doubt. Thank you. So just for some context, you've inspired me by that work. I remember we was inside, and then you told me, you was like, yo, you the embodiment of resilience. And I was like, what? But I wore it. I took it because you gave it to me. I was like, okay, I am the embodiment of resilience. And I use that to this day as I step into spaces and places. So thank you for that. But you touched on something in which I would like to bring over to Pastor Scott, because you spoke about the language which people use to define people that are incarcerated. And in your poem, you spoke about a young man who was talked about all through his younger age as a delinquent and all these other things, which ostracized him within our own community, right? Probably a young person of color being told these negative things by other people of color, and the dehumanization of that, like he internalized that from what I gathered on the poem. But can you speak to the work that you're doing currently as a means to highlight the importance of language?
Yes. Thank you for circling back there. It's highly important to understand that dehumanization starts with the language that we use. And we use language based on our relationship with a particular person, place, or thing. So it's okay for us to dehumanize certain things or certain people because our relationship towards that person, place, or thing may be or I disapprove of that, or I'm sitting in this high place, I'm looking down on this, so I can. It's easier for me to not sympathize with and use language that may be offensive when I shouldn't use that, or I wouldn't use it if it was a different circumstance. But getting more specific into sort of the numbers, which I think is important. In 2016, we started doing language research at Columbia. And what we started with was testing the words inmate, prisoner, and convict. So we would test these words amongst like 12 other labels that are common, like professor, activist, lawyer, different labels that are used to describe different people. And we found that when we asked questions like just basic questions, we asked everything from a spectrum of like, how likely is it that a person, a lawyer or blank will be able to sympathize with their friends if they were going through something, or how likely is it that they would rob this person if they had an opportunity, or if they were down in their luck. And the spectrum was wide in our questionnaire, but we found that in every question we asked, inmate, prisoner, and convict received the most dehumanizing response and the least humanizing response. So in that study, we were able to show that based on the stigmas that are associated with incarceration, that stigma is even carried in the language that people use. So when you refer to somebody a certain way, that stigma that's associated with that word carries through in this story. This is important when we talk about storytelling, right? When we use certain language, certain words to articulate a particular issue or a particular person who may experience that issue. So this is important specifically to us because we advocate for folks who are impacted by the justice system. You know, folks who are called murderers, rapists, killers, all the scum. I watch Law and Order, so they got so many names. There's like, oh man, it's a directory of names and all sort of everything. I won't go down to it. I can't. I won't. But it's enough. You want to say something?
Yeah, I just wanted to jump onto that because even just looking at language, right, and the language that is kind of, put towards individuals in those type of situations, right, it doesn't stop there. right? Because the language continues to follow individuals outside of prison once you're reintegrated back into society, right? There's a thing called Clean Slate. And the Clean Slate Act is basically trying to have individuals who are justice impacted to go through the process of being able to find employment without having to worry about a background check, right? Find housing without being discriminated on because you have a criminal record, right? This is how this language continues to impact individuals 5, 10, 15, 20 years after they have served their time, right? Look up the Clean Slate Act. It's on the website right now. These bills are up because you have men and women who just want to become active and productive members of society, right? But they are being forced to be minimized because of the language that was given to them based off of a decision that they made 10, 15, 20, 30 years ago. And to this day, I'm still facing those situations. Because if you didn't know that this was a presentation about individuals incarcerated, you would have not known that I've been incarcerated, and you would have not known that I did 29 years in prison. And the most important thing that you don't know is that I've only been home for 10 months. And this is the thing that we need to put into visible spaces so that the larger masses can see. Because if I didn't share this with you, you would not know. You would walk past me down the street and wouldn't even think about it. And this is the problem that we're having in our society today, because I can walk past you, I can live next to you, I can work with you, and there won't be an issue until those labels pop up.
And I think, thank you for that, brother, and just keep this going. I think now it's more than just language too, because we got to understand that language begins to influence behavior. Now, when we start, and we see this a lot with, we saw this a lot with our former president, and how the language he used to articulate people brought about more favor for punitive attitudes, more favor for violence, and it made you were more likely to adhere to a more of a negative perspective about a person because of the language that was used to describe them, and where that translates into action in different areas is very dangerous, because we saw it in that context one way. In the criminal justice system, we see it like, oh, these murderers, these this, these that, and this leads to more punitive laws, laws that over-sentence people, right? I sit here as a pastor today, but I did 9 years in prison. So, like, if y'all would have saw me about 20 years ago, or before I had my first daughter who was sitting back there, it'd have been a totally different vibe, and y'all would have probably sentenced me to death. But look at where I'm at today and what the Lord was able to do. So it's like the language Amen. And all of this, it takes us away from a redemptive sort of perspective and really looking at people as humans, and that people are not, who they are all the time. Like, people grow, they go through. They're 20 years from now, they're not the same person. They're not willing to make the same decisions. But the language used to articulate the criminal justice system and people who fall victim to it, even people who are, see, now when I say the criminal justice system, I'm gonna shut up right after this. This even goes to policing and how we, everybody's like, oh, we got to stop the gun violence. We certainly do. But we're missing all of these hidden messages inside of these stories that are going to be justifications for stiffer laws. And we're missing all of that because we just want the guns to stop. So we're not really looking at how this is going to affect our brothers, sisters, cousins, extended family members later down, like how mass incarceration did now. So this has a ripple effect. So this language goes to something that can be a lot more damaging,
Well, thank y'all for that. This dialogue coincides with our goal today, right? Is for people to listen to the stories of people directly impacted. And now y'all actually got something to take away with y'all. Y'all could be conscious of the language that y'all using when referring to people who have actually went through the criminal justice system. Because the reality of it is, I'm your brother, I'm your cousin, your baby daddy, your uncle, right? And there's people who look like us who are actually experiencing this. So I'm glad that you actually touched on that. So before you get into that, Ro, I think it would be really helpful for you to talk about the work that you're doing now, specifically in regards to helping young people achieve their goals so that they won't have to go through the same pathway that we did.
So because I've worked with at-risk youth for a period of time while I was incarcerated, there's a program called YAP, and YAP stands for Youth Assistance Program. And basically, what YAP is basically high school, junior high schools, court-appointed, PINs, any persons or any young people that are on the way to making decisions that's going to have them criminal justice involved, right, to regular kids in school. And they would come into the prisons and we would share our stories of how we ended up being incarcerated, but more importantly, how we would actually be in the room with them sharing our stories, right? In Italian, the word is motitia. I may be messing it up, excuse me if there's any Italians in the room, right? But it speaks to a metamorphosis, right? And we've all had to go through this metamorphosis to actually get to the place in space that we needed to be in to, one, deal with the issues that we needed to deal with, right? Two, be able to speak about those particular issues that we was dealing with. And then three, turn it around and be able to use it to help someone in their lives, right? So, like I said, I don't believe in coincidence. So there's no coincidence that me coming home, looking at society from the outside, I got a chance to see all of the holes in the pictures that we left, right? So as an individual who was, how should I want to say this? I want to be sensitive. I don't want to put this out there and I was an active shooter in the 1990s as a teenager, as an 18-year-old kid. So there's no coincidence that I come home and I work for an anti-gun violence organization in the Bronx called RTG, which our parent company is BronxConnect. And seeing the pain, the struggle, and the torment that our kids are going through now it made me realize and understand why I'm here today. Because we have to fill these holes. Because who's the best people to go out and after these people, these young adults that's in the streets that are shooting each other over colors, over Instagram wars, over the most silly and trivial things, right? And I'm able to say silly and trivial now as an individual who has served 29 years for taking the life of someone else. So for me to be able to see the things that I'm able to see now, it gives me the ability to approach and speak to these kids in a manner that their parents can't even speak to them, their schools can't even speak to them, no offense, even the church, right? Because I have a lived experience that they can understand. And more importantly, what they see is they see an individual who's came from these same streets that they're walking and talking on now to someone who's trying to protect the streets in our communities, right? And we show them, and I try to lead by example at every step and juncture of our way. And so when I'm meeting new kids, especially gang active kids, the first question I ask them is, do you got 30 years of your life to just give away? And just seeing them think about that, like, what do you mean, do I have 30 years of my life to give away? Because if you continue doing the things that you're doing, if you're continuing to live the lifestyle that you're living, if you continue to carry this gun and shoot these guns, you're going to give the state of New York 30 years of your life. There's no ifs, ands, buts about it. So you can make the choice now on what you want to do with this 30 years instead of waiting until after the fact. And this is some of the things the messages that we give across all the time. Because it's not just the guns in our communities like you was leading to. Because, again, I don't believe in coincidence, right? There's no coincidence that black and brown people are living in some of the poorest areas in this country, right? And what do you find in these areas? You find every negative thing that we can possibly get into. Alcohol, gun stores. Because when you think about it, right? When the last time a gun was made in Harlem or the Bronx? But you can find any type of guns in the Harlem and Bronx on every corner you want. And the bigger thing is that we're trying to show our kids that there's more to life than gang life, staying on your neighborhood, never leaving your block. So we have wraparound services that try to help these kids understand that you have value, you have potential. But it only works if you see it. Because we can provide these services all day, but you have to want to come out and get it. And having brothers like myself leading this spearhead of cure violence. We're not saying that we're going to stop every bit of violence happening in the city, but if you do the research and look up cure violence sites throughout the city, you'll see that in every one of our catchment, we have very low rates of shooting. The majority of shootings that happen outside of our catchments. And the reason being is because we keep a presence in our community, right? Because we try to show our community that, listen, we can do better. And this is one of the biggest things that I always tell these kids. Because we've heard these slogans for how long now? Black Lives Matter. We've heard that slogan for a while, right? But what I tell them is like, listen, Black Lives Matter, but not until it matters to you. Once you start realizing that Black Lives Matter, you won't shoot another black person or black, brown person. So this is my message. You know, every day I'm out in these streets and I'm performing.
Well, thank you for that. I give it up, because that's important work. Yeah, that's real important work. And just to think that they had you in there for 29 years, right? These are the type of people that we have in our prisons all across the country that could be contributing to our communities. And yet, you know, we're constantly bombarded with the negative media images about how they're gonna come home and do all this violence. But as we see, it's an illusion, and it's intentionally done as a means to keep us divided.
Well, I just want to say that, you know, fear is a self-propelled machine that once you start it, it's just going to take off and keep going on its own, right? And when you think about how this fear worked, going back to the early 80s when they started using terms as what they was calling these guys, the wilding guys, so going back to the language, right?
They was wilding.
Yeah.
In the 90s was super
predators, right? So when you use these type of languages, right? Society says, "Oh my God, lock them up and throw away the key." But here it is. I've met the most respectful, courteous, humble, talented individuals in my life I met while inside. And the sad part about it, it took a lot of us to go to those places to realize the talents and abilities that we had. But once we were able to realize those talents and work on crafting them to the point where we can come here and do events like this, this is what people don't understand, that you make changes. You grow in life, even in the worst situations possible. And like Devon was saying, you have men and women who has come out from these environments who has made enormous impacts on society today. So I just want to ask this one question. What are we afraid of to voice our concerns of saying enough is enough? If someone is ready to come home and be released, let them. Let them prove to us that they're ready to be here, that they want to be here, that they need to be here. And this is the message that we need to express to our politicians, that there are people in here that can make an impact.
Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Can I add something to that, D? I think it's important to give a bit more context into what the brother's saying so we could get a bit more of a visual into it. Don't ever imagine the system is set up in any way where it is productive to the men and women who are incarcerated. It is the solidarity amongst the people there, the willingness to say that we want to do better, that we want to change our mindset, we want to think better, we don't want to go to the yard to just do this, we want to take the time to read, study. There's a solidarity that's built, a sense of community that's built in any environment, and that is what helps people come home and be successful. You know, the brother came home to a network of people. It's not just that, you know, because I don't want anyone to ever think that, oh, prison is good for anyone. It's not. It's not. And it's only by the grace of God that many people are even able to make it out and in their right mind. This is important. Everybody who come home don't come home in their right mind, and that's not all their fault. A lot of folks go in. I could definitely tell you some traumas I done brought out of there. You jingle keys too much. I'm like this. There's a few things that come out of there that ain't the same. So there's a lot that we really should understand in this sense of solidarity. Now this solidarity, the brother taken to the community and right in the community space, it can yield fruit. So this is something that we got to understand. It's not the system that's making folks better. It's us coming together with the willingness to be better. That's making folks better. That's helping folks to come home and be ready to succeed and contribute to you know. So I just wanted to provide that context. I don't want nobody out walking out of here thinking prison is good. Don't call the police on nobody thinking that that's going to be good. I want to just say
It definitely ain't gonna be good because you know you're black and it don't work out too good for black folk. But I wanted to also just quickly acknowledge Rowland because it was actually Row who pushed me to apply to get into the prison to college pipeline program, and this was 10 years ago now, right? So just thinking about the fruits that the seeds that you planted a decade ago. I would hope to say that I've been able to contribute in some shape, form, or fashion to others being able to take advantage of opportunity. So it yield fruit, right? And with that, I'm going to segue to you, Pastor Scott, because the confined arts is literally designed to highlight and hone on the artistic skills and just skills in general that people have inside and bringing that to the community. So can you speak to that?
It's important, I wrote about this, that I believe that every change agent should have strategic arts engagement as a tool in their toolkit. And I say that because I believe that the arts has the capacity to change perception. It has the capacity to build relationship, right? It also has the capacity to foster action, right? And it's important that when we think about understanding across perspectives, I'm a pastor. I sit in spaces where the narrative is heavy for the formerly incarcerated people, and then I sit on the community board where people like, listen, it ain't safe out there. I don't feel comfortable going outside. And no one's story is less important or less should be taken any less serious than the other. Concerns are concerns, and we got to be able to bring these perspectives all together and come up with collaborative solutions. And this is where the arts comes in. I believe that there's no other tool that can be used that will help us to be able to bring all of these perspectives together in a place where we can build, learn, strengthen perspective, and then go out and create something. You know, it happens over artistic exercise. It happens when we share space and we do a sip and paint, or we do something where we got to create something together, where you throw us in a group of 5 people, say, yo, I got 10 minutes to make this. And it takes 5 minutes for us to get to know each other, then the other 5 minutes to create something. And surprisingly enough, we did it. You know, but that doesn't happen. No other vehicle can do that. So a huge part of the confined arts is highlighting the need for strategic arts engagement in our advocacy today. You want people to understand better about laws and the importance of it? Create a film. Do some poetry, create an event where it's some strategic arts engagement that's going to allow people who may never talk in life, but come together over this one medium. You know, everyone listens to music, right? So there's a connection that's made through arts. And that's what we highlight with the confined arts. And also just building individual capacity through the arts as well. That's important as well. And building your own individual capacity to use your talent and your voice to be a change agent. You know, to be able to use what you've gone through and your ability to, create something. To be able to tell that story. To be able to free yourself. Sometimes the arts ain't for everybody else. Sometimes it's for you. You know, so that's what that's the crux of what the confined arts is about. That's our philosophy, and that comes straight out of my experience being formerly incarcerated and having to live in a space and doing this advocacy work and seeing the progress we make when, we beat down the door and rally in front of the mayor's office. But then it's different when Ava DuVernay puts out a film. And that gets a professor moved out of a college who black students couldn't get out there for decades. You know what I mean? So it's important that we pay attention to what actually helps us to make that connection. Sometimes it's visuals. You know, sometimes we see an image that has us connect to something like, damn, nah, that's not right. You know what I mean? And but we don't pay that any attention. Aesthetics mean everything, you know?
Thank you for that. So I'd be remiss if I didn't acknowledge Coby Kennedy, whose installation is outside right now, is focused on Khalif Browder. And I'm gonna move on to you, Ro. Like, what was your first how did you interact with it upon seeing it, the installation outside?
Just like with most things related to my time incarcerated, I take a moment to pause and reflect, right? Because I lived in that confined space. I know what it feels like to actually be locked in it. So just looking at it, you know, gave me the chills. It gave me the chills because that's not a space for a human being to exist in. You know, I understand that they have lofts out here, right? And the lofts are basically, you know, your kitchen, bedroom, bathroom, all in the same space, but it's still separated. In that space, there's no separation. You eat where you sleep. You sleep where you shit. Excuse my language, right? But that space just ran a chill through me just seeing it, because I understand what it was meant for, right? When you think about it, right? Think about it in this regards. When you're planting something, as a seed, you use a small pot. But as that seed and plant starts to grow, you change that pot so it has room to grow and room to breathe, right? You don't have room to grow and room to breathe in those cells or those cages.
And you, Isaac, can you let us know what you felt?
Yeah, I walked out there with you. I'm gonna reflect on our conversation, and that I looked at it and I said, this can't be how small the cell was. I said, this is extremely small. And I said, you know what, D, if we put the bed in there, the toilet, and all of that, we'll probably be like, damn, that's how small it is. And it goes right back to what you said. That is not a space for a human being. You know, I want to leave it there. I think, thank you, brother, for that piece, because it speaks volumes. Just put a person in there for 15, 20 minutes. That's enough for them to understand how serious that is, you know?
Can I just add on? So, and I just want to share this story with you. So, as you're talking, I was reminded of a YAP session that we had in Greenhaven Correctional Facilities at this time. And we brought a group of students in. And sometimes the teachers or the counselors or whoever brings them, the chaperone that brings them, you know, they'll come to us and be like, well, you know, Devon is the ringleader, but he really needs to get, you know, a reality check. And at this particular time, we made it available where we were going through a housing unit. A housing unit is a cell block. And we made it available where all the empty spaces or empty cells would be open as we're walking past. And as we were walking past, you know, the kids were getting a sense of like, I don't want to go in there. But the person that the chaperone was explaining to us, we actually walked them into a cell, let them see, let them feel, and then we stepped out and locked them in it. And the sheer terror in his screams had people that lived in this block talking about it for days. Because it was a fresh reawakening for everybody that lived in that environment, the torment that you go through every day you walk into that.
Wow. That's powerful. I was just doing some math. So unfortunately, between us three men on this stage, these three black men, we got 54 years of confinement between us. Actually, when I sit on that, damn, they had this brother in there and had us in there for all these years. But now coming out to the community, because I always want us to like end on a high note and good spirit. Like, what are the things that you feel that the peoples in the community could do as a means to contribute to the reentry process for community members, loved ones, et cetera? And either one of you could jump in.
I think that, it's important that folks stop talking about things and talking about people and really become active in whichever way they can, if it's being active in your vote, making sure that you make a responsible vote, or if it's, supporting by lending your space for activists or doing something. I think that folks have to begin to contribute and stop looking at the issue and critiquing it because nothing's happening or nothing's changing in their eyes. Oh, this is their problem. They need to do this. They need to do that. And they sitting on their chair doing what I'm about to do for because they're not doing nothing and they're not being active. So I definitely want to call people to, doing more than just watching, what's going on right next to them, what's going on right around them. Sometimes people, when they hear a struggle, they close the door. They don't open the door. They quick to, I think that another thing that we have to start doing is stop making the NYPD our fail-safe. And we really have to come up with alternative solutions to policing. In New York, folks call the police for everything from a cat in a tree, noise, to crime, and that they shouldn't be tasked with all of those jobs. There needs to be more support in the areas of mental instability, emotional instability. Folks are going through. When we see folks outside and they look like they spazzing or they going through, I wish that we would have a different heart than just, one that looks at them like they crazy, but one that wishes that they knew what they could do to help. And I think that sort of spirit takes us in a better space. But we gotta get our hands dirty. That's my feedback to everybody. Get your hands dirty. If your hands ain't dirty, you're not doing nothing. You're a part of the problem. If you sitting here and you see what's going on and you're not doing nothing, you're a part of the problem. That's a call to everybody. If you're just sitting around and even coming here is something. Coming here, taking your time to watch this, take pictures, post something about it, post a message on your feed so you educate somebody else about something you heard. Do something. Don't do nothing and then sit and wonder why, things are the way they are. So that's just my feedback. I think.
Absolutely. I just want to piggyback off Brother Isaac's statement because it's my message to the communities. When we're out in the community, we're doing rallies, we're doing marches, and I explain to the community, like, listen, there's only so much that we can do as the men and women who fight to support and promote cure violence. It's only so much that we can do. We need our communities to be very active in this and take a very proactive approach. Because the reason I say that is because the community that we're going into in relation to shooting responses, the victims and the shooter both come from this community. The people within the community know what's going on. They know who's who. We're not asking you to turn anybody in, but we're asking you to be active in your community. Talk to your kids, talk to your friends, talk to people, right? And if you see something, and you see one of us as cure violence workers, know that you can come to us and be like, yo, listen, Devon is having an issue. I think you need to go talk to him. And that's what we're here to do, but we need our communities to be communities because you can't have community without what? Unity. So if we're not unified in our approach to what we want to do in our lives and in our communities, then we're going to continue to have these problems, right? And we can't always rely on the government or the police because we understand the level of bureaucracy that comes along with that. But there's no bureaucracy when it comes to us living in our communities. I remember growing up in New York, in the Bronx, where everybody in my neighborhood knew each other. If you ask your next door neighbor, what is your neighbor's name? How many can y'all say that? Because we go in our homes and we lock our doors. There's no such thing as community no more. We have to be community. We have to come together and understand that, listen, it's our babies that are dying. It's our communities that's going to shambles. I don't know about y'all, but it's a beautiful day outside. I want to be able to go outside and not have to worry about hearing gunshots or hearing that somebody just lost their lives. Like this morning, woke up to the news, 13 people were shot last night. I don't know about y'all, but that gives me an alarming feeling. And like I said, this is coming from an individual who's just as involved. But I understand the need for having police in our communities, law and order. Because without it, there's going to be anarchy. And then you see, look, we're seeing the beginning stages of this now. And this is only going to get worse because I've seen this movie before. I seen this movie in the early 90s when they was talking this war on crime, or war against drugs. Now it's going to be a war against guns. And so many people are going to lose their lives in the process of it, whether it's a physical death or it's by incarceration. But we need our community to stand together because this is what we are right now, loosely. But this is what we are together. We can affect any change we want as long as we're here.
Thank you for that, and I agree with you. In fact, I'm going to actually say we do have community, and so just to give you an example or illustration, this is community right here, because the reality of it is when brothers and sisters come home from prison, it's not the government or these institutions which are going to provide them the support that they need in order to thrive. It's going to be all of y'all in the crowd. Right? It's going to be the real community who's, okay, you know what? Here's a Metro card. Oh, I made a meal. Make sure you come upstairs, baby. Like, that's the things that people need to feel welcome when they come home into the community. So I don't want to get too deep into it because I could go up all day with my brothers. Like, it's like a reunion. But I do want to allow the Red Hook community and anybody who traveled from afar to chime into the dialogue because I know y'all probably got some questions in which y'all would like to have answered or want to learn something. So there is no question that is ignorant or silly. So feel free to come up to the podium.
I want to ask if y'all can talk in a little bit of detail or maybe give personal accounts of what I feel like is one of the most important things that you're talking about right now, the stigma that formerly incarcerated people have when they come out, where a vast swath of the society sees someone coming out of prison or jail or any kind of incarceration, and they see them as, they already have an archetype of what they are. They already have an idea, and that sticks. And like, even me, I have a reflexive idea of people coming out of incarceration, and I work against that in myself. So, you know, media has put it into my mind. It's put it into everybody's mind. It's like in there. And so I feel like that's one of for everything that we would love to move forward, love to see, it feels like that's a core element of moving people to change their perspective. And I was just wondering if, you all touched on it, I was wondering if there's personal instances in your life, or in people that you know that you've seen it really, really benefit, that you could just tell us a little bit about.
First, I think you hit it right on the nose with the popular media, because what it does is it brands an image in your mind. And if you don't have family members who've gone to jail, if you've never interacted with anyone who's been incarcerated, then you have this archetype of what they look like, right? They're this big, you know, if they're black, they big black, bald head, bubba, you know, or they white, bald head, tattoos. There's a popular Hollywood stereotype that we see, and it's very hard to come out of that. It's also real now. Here we go a little deeper. When your family got to deal with you and through your mess, and they feel like, nah, I know that boy, or nah, I know that girl. She ain't no good, or it ain't no good. You ain't just working through a popular narrative. You working through your mess. Now your family like, I know you. Listen, you done stole everything I had. You done did this. You done did that. And sometimes it takes time. You get stigmatized for going to prison and living a certain life in different ways. And sometimes it comes through a popular way where it'd be hard for me, even as a pastor who has his own business, is running an organization. If I tried to go down the street and get a job at a certain place, I got to mark a box that'll disqualify me, and they don't even know who I am, right? There's a stigma that comes that way, but there's also a stigma that's in your home as well. You know, and that stigma sometimes is a lot harder for people, you know, to go through, because coming home from prison and being in a space where you're not housed with your family, you're living, it's like us living, there's a bunch of men living in a big space, or a bunch of women living in a big space, and this is who you're used to dealing with. Your family doesn't understand, they can't relate, and a lot of stigmas about what they might see happens to people in jail, coupled with what they know or believe they still know or think about you. All of those things are like a big snowball that a lot of times folks have to work through, and it's easier sometimes and it's harder other times. You know, sometimes folks come home and the best thing that they do is don't go live with their family, because they don't understand what they're going through, and they may need some time to just get reacclimated to being out here and being around different people. You know, they start asking you questions. Why you do that? Why you do that? Why are you bugging? You ain't in jail no more. And they expect you to snap it off that fast, right? You ain't in jail no more. Stop doing that, and laugh and a chuckle about it. Stigmas, these things, you know, these are deep. And these happen in so many different ways. And we treat a lot of different stigmas that way too. We think we could just snap them off. Oh, get over it. You ain't gotta, you could just, don't worry about them. Forget about what they say. Nah, that matters. They may have an influence. This may be the crowd I'm trying to get into. This may be where I need to be, or this may have I may not be that strong to sort of overcome how they're looking at me. So it's important to kind of sort of look at that stigma in different areas too, you know, not because my experience was in home. You know, I had to deal with family members really looking at me like I was moving the same, and I knew I was different. I knew I had a different state of mind, and I had to really just step back from them. Thank God I wasn't living with them, so it wasn't like I had to be overwhelmed with it. But I know some brothers like Brother Thomas who had to live with the family, and it's like you can't get away, and they don't know, and you need to be there because you don't got nowhere else to go. It's such a rough situation to be in, you know, and then it's like, well, I did do everything that I did to go to jail, so it's like, maybe this is what I got to go through. See where a person's mind start going, and you start, and stigma does a lot to you. It does a lot, and it doesn't just show up in those popular ways or those public ways. It does show up in the home a lot. It does show up in relationships, you know, when you deal with your spouse and they ask and you do certain things and they don't understand why, or they're again minimizing it or over maximizing it, and you trying to get past it and they making it a block party, and it's like, damn, chill, I'm good, you know. So it's a lot there in that area of stigma. I don't know if you want to add to that, big bro.
Yeah, excuse me, yes I do. So I definitely want to say that recidivism is a social construct that has the ability to turn into a self-fulfilling prophecy. And the reason that I say that is this. Coming home, college educated, determined, focused, I put myself in the positions of saying, this is where I want to be in life, this is the path that I plan to take in life, and this is how I'm going to get there. So I say that to say that going through the job situation, I would get jobs. I would get good jobs just off my resume because I have a great resume. But then the background check would come up, and it would come up again, and it would come up again, and it would come up again. So I went through that process 8 times, getting jobs and then being denied, right? And the reason that I say recidivism, it ultimately becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. How many times can you accept the word no? When you're trying to do the right thing and you're being told no, 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 no. Nothing has changed. Because no matter who you present to me today, this piece of paper says, this is who you are. Being able to deal with that in a manner that's constructive, you need a support system, right? You need a support system that's going to be able to tell you that, listen, for every no, there's going to be that one no, that one yes, excuse me. But you got to get to that one yes. And having that resolve is key. And part of having that resolve, like you said, is creating those networks of people around you that's going to create the energy and the momentum that you're going to need to continue to push forward so that you don't sit there and say, you know what? I'm not dealing with this. I'm going to go back to do what I know best. And that's how recidivism become a self-fulfilling prophecy. Because the system is designed for people to fail. If you're not resilient or have a level of connection that can help you get to where you need to get to, it's hard. It is very hard because that saying, it's not what you know, it's who you know. In this situation, that's the truth. Because, like I said, if I print my resume out for y'all right now, I'm 100% sure somebody will raise their hand up and offer me a job. Just off of my resume without even seeing me or listening to me speak. But then when I come in and start speaking and you see that piece of paper that says formerly incarcerated, you don't give me a chance to explain myself. You don't give me a chance to say, you know what? Let's see what he can do.
Yeah, maybe I'm gonna take a different angle with it because I'm looking at the success piece, right? In many ways, when we come home from jail and prison, unfortunately, we pigeonhole to others' ideas of what they want us to be, right? So, you know, I use myself for example. I've been fortunate I'm the first person in my family to graduate from college, right? And first person in my family to be able to travel to different countries in the world, right? Been to Africa several times and all that stuff, right? And now it's like, oh no, you wasn't supposed to be doing this. Right now, I don't know what they call it. He probably be like, this is mother effort. He think he did blah, 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 all right? But the reality of it is not me. It's really you and the stigmatization that you have of people who come from that environment, right? So the stigmatization of people who go through the system is a preconceived notion from the media images in which they see. And fortunately, you know, us brothers here on the stage are doing our due duty to demystify that.
Good afternoon, everyone, and good afternoon, fellow panelists. And I traveled from Bedford-Stuyvesant.
Can we get a name, brother? Can we get a name?
Oh, Terrell. And I'm born and raised from the, I grew up in the original Bedford-Stuyvesant, so born and raised. I have a statement and I also have a question, and I apologize, I forgot the names. My statement is towards you about the lack of communication, which I highly do agree with you on. Because like with me growing up, like I always knew the names of my neighbors, and like with today, because I grew up in 2 different apartments in the Sty. So I grew up on the Bed-Stuy Clinton Hill, and I'm at the Bed-Stuy Bushwick borderline. And that area of Bed-Stuy where I'm at now, like I only know like a few of my neighbors. Like the times really have like changed, where it's like I knew everybody's name, and now it's like I hardly don't know anybody's name because it's either like the environment, which does play a role, because I do live in like a toxic like environment where it's like a lot of those people I don't need to be around with. So but other than that, like I feel like society as a whole, I mean, usually when it comes to like lack of communication, I blame that like on 2 entities, like social media, and it's a touchy subject like gentrification. I blame it on that as well. Like when I meet like new people, they always ask me like, what's your Instagram? I'm not on Instagram. Like the appropriate question should be, what's your phone number and email? So like when you was talking about the lack of communication, it just reminded me like all that and everything. And then my question, the one in the middle, because I forgot, you had mentioned something about, what, I think it was a friend you said, or I couldn't remember which one. The one that's on death row. I couldn't remember the part if it was a crime that he committed or a crime he didn't commit, and if it was a crime that he didn't commit, is there like a petition to stop the death row?
Actually, that brother is, so he's a part of a 4-person group called Spoken Pen. You can look Spoken Pen up and you can find out their information. One of the gentlemen of the 4 was executed and the other 3 are still on death row. Kenneth Reams, who's one of those 3, is the person who introduced me to that person. And Kenneth just got his like sentence commuted from death. So now I think they're trying to figure out what to do with him. So Lord willing, he could be coming home because the person I'm talking about, he actually wasn't the person who pulled the trigger, but did get death row. He did go to trial and did blow trial, and it was sentenced to death row. Now, the person whose poem I read, I don't think his situation was the same. I think he got convicted for what he did, and he's sitting on death row. So, yeah, they have a group that you can support, and that like there's a petition wrapped up in their group, but it's more of a petition to support them as artists who are doing what we're doing from the inside. So they're in there now trying to use their voices to sort of give back in positive ways. So again, it's spoken pen. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Terrell. Be good.
Thank you, Terrell.
Thank you.
Good evening, fellas.
Peace.
Peace.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Bill Blunt, and I am also a credible messenger, right? I understand the work that y'all do. I do the same. But my question to y'all would be, understanding and knowing the work that we do addresses mostly, from the ages maybe 16 to about 24, right? And what I find hard in this work, and I'm starting to see it now, is that you get to talk to 3 out of 5, 3 out of 10 maybe, and make a difference and make a change, right? But what I'm starting to really focus and pay attention to is that the babies that's 10, they turn to 13, and then it's getting more and more numbers and more numbers, so it's like the fight is unwinnable. So I guess what I'm trying to ask is, what do you guys feel, how do you guys feel we should address that?
Go for it, please.
Thank you, Bill Blunt. Pleasure seeing you again. Yeah, it's one of my brothers right there from P2CP. So to address that issue, right? So being an active individual in this cure of violence thing, right? Some of the things that we actually took to do in the neighborhood that I work in is that we understand that there's kids in this neighborhood that we just can't get to. We understand that first and foremost, right? And it's not that we outcast them or throw them away saying that we can't get to them, right? We take a different approach, right? Because if I can get to you and you hang with them, I'm going to go to you so you can go there. But as far as the younger kids are concerned, me and my crew for RTG, my team, we've taken an active role in being, how do we want to say, not mentors, not surrogate fathers, not replacements, but presence in the parks, in our communities, right? We give our toys to the little kids, right? And how do they get these toys? We ask them little things for them to earn it. We go to the community, we go get the kids and go play basketball with them, football with them, right? We come from that era where we were active, right? And if you sit down and watch a lot of these kids, they're not active, right? And then the other thing is that they want to have a male presence in their lives. You have everything that you have to offer them. Just be there. Because there's a statement that I learned from years ago. Children don't care about how much you provide for them until they know how much you love them. Meaning you have to show them through time, effort, and energy. And just being in the community, one of the things that we really see was that the single mothers who's struggling, who want to send their kids out to the park to play, but were scared because of all of the stuff that's going on, when they see us now, they come to us and be like, yo, is it okay if I send my kids to the park? Come on, we got here, let's go. That's how you do that. You go get them little kids early now. You get them active, bring them games, take them to the park, take them on trips. Just being present in their lives is all you need right now, brother. Trust that.
I would just add to that. I was thinking that it would be good if Cure Violence sites begin to partner more with parenting sites and things that work with families, because a lot of that comes right out the home. Like, I got 3 teenagers now, and I know what that's like, having your son like struggle through, and having kids, they go through, and it's not always, parents don't understand how much the way they live their lives impact their children, right? And children go through a lot, and sometimes a lot of it is just attention that they need, and they're gonna get it from wherever they need to get it. Whoever's gonna give it, they're gonna get it from there. And I think if there was a partnership more with these cure violence places and family service providers, it'd be good to be able to provide these single parent homes with more support, because a mother who's working all day don't got time to be chasing her son after school. That's hard, and then she don't want to hear you telling her about how hard-headed her son is, because she got to go through it every night, so it's a lot when you talking about this. I think providing more connective support you know, and linking organizations that service. If we all serving our community, what are all the different services that come out of a community? And let's start collaborating. Let's start working together, you know?
Yeah, I can't even add to that. But let's go, sister, because I want everybody to be able to get their questions in.
So I have a question for all of you. Thank you so much for sharing. This is very much needed. I'm very excited to have these perspectives on stage so that everyone can be aware. I have an organization that I brought into Rikers Island for 3 years. So I have a perspective with the women at Rosie's, how a lot of them are in there for things that they shouldn't even be in there for, right? So when I think about that, the political vote isn't enough. Us voting, and that's not enough. Because the political sense is just a whole game to me, right? I'm gonna speak for myself, right? It's a whole game. So we could vote all we want and get the right people in chair. What are we gonna really do about closing Rikers, right? That campaign was what, for 10 years? It's now what, like 6 or so years for it to close? They're actually trying to revamp it into a different type of jail. So they're not trying to take away jails. How can we really, when we talk about policing, I don't even like to use that term, policing our own neighborhoods, how can we actually really do that? Can we speak on, you know, what can actually be implemented within our neighborhoods for that to actually happen so that the police isn't present to do these things? I'm tired of having to walk my own block as a woman that has a child to make sure that my brothers is good because they want to ride like their motorcycles on the sidewalk just for a second, and the police is right there ready to just penalize them for that. So what exactly can we really do when it comes down to policing our communities?
Thank you for that question. Wow, powerful. You know, but my thing is community, right? You know, we got to galvanize our people from the ground up. You know, bottom line, if we have influences, if we have people with influence in our neighborhood, we need to go to these people. We need to pull these people together, right? We need to come together with a strategic plan of action of how we want to have our communities to start to develop. And there's models that we can look at, right? Here in Brooklyn, the Muslim brothers, excuse me, I don't want to offend anybody's religion, but there was a community of Muslims in Brooklyn, right, who policed their own communities, right? Had police stay on the outskirts of their communities, right? There's other communities within our communities, right? Look at the Jewish communities. Look at all of these different communities. They have systems in play that they utilize to keep their communities safe. So we have to be able to do the same things because we have the tools necessary to do so. Because like I said, if you have people in your neighborhood who have some type of influence, whether it's over the gangs, whether it's over the businesses, whether it's over whoever, these are the people that you need to get to strategically and plan out a course of action. Because everything starts from the bottom up, you know, and then from there, you know, we link into these other services, these other communities, these other agencies, right? Because then we build the momentum. And once you build that momentum, everything follows. But you have to go to the people in your neighborhood with the influence first. That's just my opinion.
I agree. I think the police in the community is a lot. I believe that it's a lot simpler than we make it seem, but I really believe that the biggest challenge we have is that folks don't want to get their hands dirty and don't want to actually get out there and be the people. So they want to talk about what it could look like, but like, okay, so would you volunteer to be that person? And it's like, oh, nah, but I gotta, you know, and it's that whole vibe. And I think that's what we come down to, and people saying it, you know, we could get real bold and go and get in the voter booth and talk crap and make a vote. That's an easy thing to do, not to minimize our activism, but different asks require different sacrifices. And it really comes down to like how much people are willing to sacrifice for us to have a place where we can, and we don't even have to use policing. We can use the word community supervision, where we do, you know, we work within our own communities. And you said something earlier that was so true, that the person doing the shooting and the person getting shot is from the same place, and the community most of the time knows that. And if there was a sense of community, issues could be resolved and taken care of before they even escalate to these type of places. I think there has to be a lot more intervention, community intervention. Like we gotta be, I'm gonna call out also the folks who come home and still play both sides of the fence, who still wanna be gangsters. All y'all who work care violence know this, because y'all work with the hardest people. So some of them come in there and they gotta be the gangsters with them. And it's like, fam, that's not what you're supposed to be doing here. You're supposed to be showing them not to be a gangster. Don't glorify that and just be like, oh, well, they don't do nothing, so they good. And it's like, nah, there's a larger message that you gotta be giving out. So there really needs to be that, I gave up that life completely, and this is why. Coming from the leaders, coming back into the community, So I think it's a number of things, Queen. We gotta do a lot. There's a lot, and I think it really starts with folks giving more, being willing to sacrifice more, being willing to put themselves out there more,
I just wanted to add one more thing too, sis. And this is powerful directly for you, right? As a woman actively out here campaigning, advocating for the rights of people in your community, the people in Rikers Island, I want to say that women's role in this cure violence process has been greatly undermined. Right? Because the mothers, the sisters, the aunts, you guys have a major impact or a major say in what goes on in our communities. So maybe you can start galvanizing the women in your community, right? That have these sons, these brothers, these nephews, these cousins that's running around here doing this stuff, right? And pull them together and see what they can do. Because the power of women goes a long way.
Amen to that.
Yeah, I was just gonna add a little bit to it. You done took my thunder, but it'd be something, literally, it could be small. It's the individual accountability piece for me on our end, right? Like, when you see somebody throwing some trash out on like, literally, like, pull them up, be like, yo, why are you messing up our community? All right, like curb your dog.
Take ownership.
Right, like take ownership and embrace that sense of community. So hopefully that was helpful for you, Blessing. Is anybody else dying to get something in before we leave? Is that my Aunt Jackie? I can't. That's my Aunt Jackie?
Hey, Aunt Jackie.
Okay, yeah, Aunt Jackie. So she's Queen of Red Hook. She does she's part of Red Hook Community Justice Center and does peacemaking work. So just wanted to shout her, and that's community, right? We was here last time we had the first series, and she said, next time I come, I'm gonna come back, make sure I support you and bring you some food. That's what community is about, right? Like that's
all
it's
your
real talk,
business.
right? This is what we do, right? Like we see brothers and sisters that come through and we connect. Like that's what community building is all about. So thank you for coming through, Aunt Jackie. I see you. I just want to make sure to shout you out. Well, thank you everyone for coming out tonight.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you, all these beautiful people.
Yes, y'all should all be commended because y'all could have been anywhere in the world and y'all actually took the time to come here today to hear our story. So I appreciate y'all for that.